Welcome back to ADHD Power Tools, everybody. We're back with Jeff Copper, and today we're going to talk more about emotional self-regulation. We're gonna talk specifically to that, how to manage it. Jeff, I want to ask you, how can an ADHDer manage emotional self-regulation, and what are the possibilities for someone once they can manage it?
So I'm going to answer your question, but I want to frame it a little differently. You have mental health and physical health. We tend to do exercises for our physical health. People don't think about our mental health. And, I'm sure you guys have talked a lot about mindfulness or meditation. Meditation is the practice of focusing on your breath and noticing extraneous thought come to your mind or a feeling. You notice it, let it go, and bring your focus back to your breath. It's an exercise of shifting your attention. Okay, with intention. Just like a tennis player practicing serves or a basketball player shooting free throws. It's a practice, in a simulated environment so that in game time you do that. So that's that, we all know that's good. Journaling, a gratitude journal, right? That's about identifying the good things that happen in life, because problems abound and we're dealing with problems all the time. And so you have to practice that because problems will all crowd it out. But the idea of doing a gratitude journal is to shift your attitude. So we've talked about shifting your attention and shifting your attitude in order for more mental health. When it comes to emotional self-regulation, I have to say if you don't mind me telling the story, because sometimes you stumble into things by accident, but during COVID, we're all in lockdown and my younger son was here and like, what do we do? So we started watching the Harry Potter movies and Star Wars from beginning to end. And one day I found myself watching Star Wars 3, The Return of the Sith. And at the end, I'm on the ground, and at the end of it, the music is blaring, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is fighting with what's going to be Darth Vader. And I've noticed my body's all intense, and I'm like, oh my God. And I just shut my eyes and kind of relaxed for a second. And I started watching the movie, and my body was intense. And I was like, oh my God, this is emotional self-regulation. So I was like, wow, this is great. How do I use this for my people with ADHD? Because I can talk about it all day long, but what do you do with it? So waited like a year later and the election came around. Oh my God, was that a godsend? So in order for your mental health and be able to practice emotional self-regulation, the United States had an election that was very conflicting and controversial. So if you were a Trump fan, you had to go home and watch CNN News. And if you were a Biden fan, you had to go watch Fox News. Now understand, you go home, take your shoes off. I don't want anything flying at the TV, but I was putting people in a simulated environment that was going to elicit emotions for them to begin to practice feeling their body and practice calming down. And I had to repeat it. Like, remember, we like to think the news is news, but it's really entertainment. It's biased entertainment. So they're trying to entertain the other crowd. Nothing you're going to do is going to change it. And it was amazing to me, and still is, how many people, when I suggest that, they start to freak out. And I'm going, okay, now you understand how difficult emotional self-regulation is. So mental health is the practicing of shifting your attention, shifting your attitude, and shifting your emotion. And I think in another episode, we talked about how I interviewed Sesame Street years ago, and they basically defined the process of emotional self-regulation. This is what I do with people to actually engage them in it in a practical type way. Now, if you're not really politically oriented, if you cry at movies, maybe it's a chick flick, you go and you try not to cry, or maybe there's some other things.
What's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually a good
The
thing.
Notebook's maybe my favorite movie, along with my husband's.
But the idea really is I'm trying to put them in a situation where they in a private environment that's simulated for people to really kind of tap in to understand what we're thinking about. Now, what I've described is easy to say. It's still difficult for people with ADHD to get into that environment and practice it. But ideally, they begin to understand they can. It's one thing to say, feel your body. It's another thing to feel your body and then down regulate it. When you're in the work environment, all you want to do is reach across and clock somebody, where if you're there and you want to throw something at the TV, at least I had you take your shoes off. So that's not a weapon. But the idea really is to help people get tapped into that. And I will acknowledge that emotional self-regulation, for those that struggle with, is the single greatest challenge of ADHD. And it thwarts attention and everything else. If you don't take care of that, it's all downhill. So it is a challenge, but it's the other thing I'd like to say is that people with ADHD that struggle with emotions, they're usually noticing the negative side, the anger, the frustration. There's a positive side too. There's people with ADHD that are passionate about something. I mean, they're so passionate. Other people they'll just drop what they're doing. They'll sell I'm following that guy. I don't know why, but they're so into what they're doing. It's so convincing that it can be used to an advantage in the right situations, but like anything else, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's are you putting yourself in the environment where it's a good thing, and keeping yourself out of the environment for challenge. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. If I can add to that too, it's so fascinating to me. Yesterday, I was driving and we live in Florida. So there was this huge Trump rally / DeSantis rally, people with flags. And that's what drew people who are Trump fans or DeSantis fans to that. It's a reticular activation system where your brain goes to things that you are drawn to. So like there's a reason why Facebook only shows you the things that you align with. Same thing with Instagram, same thing with Google. So to your point, we really need to program or reprogram our brain to think differently. And I know that 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So we have to try really hard to be proactive in reprogramming our emotions.
Can I speak to that for a second?
Sure.
What's an instinct?
It's that gut feeling.
It's a gut feeling. There's things that we're hardwired to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're hardwired. Instinctively, we procreate. Instinctively, we forage for food. An animal will wag its fur instinctively to rid itself from water. Okay. An instinct is again, it's not taught or learned. It's kind of hardwired into us, and it's to a certain extent reflexive.
It's like that survival reaction.
Exactly. It's a survival reaction, right? So if you really begin to think about it, dopamine, and we're oversimplifying the human brain, but we know that dopamine is the reward neurotransmitter, okay? We can talk all day long about passion and interest and motivation, but everybody's brain has its own dopamine blueprint. I mean, there's people out there, as Dr. Nelson, who like hot glue guns. I mean, it's just that I don't get it. Or people like golf, there's like whatever, but we all have our own little blueprint, and our brains are hardwired to search for dopamine because that's the reason that we procreate, search for food. It's the reason we come out from the cold, reason we come in from the heat, reason that we scratch ourselves, the reason we go get water. The reason I'm saying that is you begin to look at this is an instinct. It's an instinct. You're hardwired to these instincts. In order to self-regulate, you can't let your guard down because your body is constantly doing. That's why ADHD is so difficult, because emotionally, we want to feel good based off our instincts, and the ability to pause and override that is so difficult and tense. And that's why I get frustrated with people who don't look at ADHD seriously, because I mean, this can kill you if you don't manage. You can live a fulfilling life, but most people I don't realize, they don't think about this at its epicenter. You're overriding evolution.
Yes.
At a certain level, and people think, oh, I can just try harder. Well, no, you're fighting Mother Nature.
That's
I don't
powerful.
I got my money
powerful.
I got your money and his money. We got all my money on that because I know I'm going to win that long term. And so I'm highlighting that because people don't. My mom once said, if you say something is easy and it's hard, you're not given the respect that it's due. You have to be serious about this. And again, ADHD is a bit of a challenge. And I like to frame things out. It's Mother Nature. You're having to overcome Mother Nature on a moment by moment basis. That's why this is difficult. I'm not trying to get anybody upset or scared or whatever, but I just want you to look at, you can live a fulfilling life, but you got to accept it where it is. And so that urge, I talk about, it's the urge. And if you really watch your urges, almost everything you do is an urge. If I shift my seat, I have the urge to get comfortable. Right. I'm seeking that, or was just uncomfortable. I'm trying to get my way out of that. That's why advertisers prey on people with ADHD. They're selling nothing but pleasure and to escape pain.
Yes, I think Ali and I did a whole episode on dopamine and chasing dopamine, and talking about Andrew Huberman and what he talks about with the dopamine and how very often we're chasing that. So we're below our dopamine level. And sometimes if we don't regulate our ADHD, bad things can happen. We can chase that dopamine through drugs, through, sex in ways that
chocolate, music, gambling, social media,
overeating,
nicking. Yeah, all those are self-medicating behaviors.
Absolutely.
So it's a challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's important just to put yourself in those situations which are very challenging mentally and physically, right? To understand and embrace that instinct and that emotion state. For example, going for a workout, going into an ice bath. You know, you go into an ice bath. It's that tough situation that you just want to hop out, but really embracing that, taking it in the emotion and the physical instinct. Even a sauna, whatever it may be, going rucking, hiking with
Yes. So
something.
I'm gonna say exactly what you are. I'm just gonna say the other side of it. Practice being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Okay. I totally agree with you, but just for some people hear that, but there's the other side of it. So it's like two sides of the same coin, but you're practicing being uncomfortable so that you're there and you learn how to manage being uncomfortable without escaping and doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to just, for the mother instinct in me, if you are going to take an ice bath out there, make sure it's with a professional. You can try to get your hands in an ice bowl or your feet, like your extremities. But if you're going to do that, which it's very popular these days, you have to wean yourself into that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, practice getting uncomfortable. I like that. And you really have to take a look at yourself, because so often we have this fixed mindset and we have this way of instinct and programming that, you know, we think we're right about certain things. And when we take a step back and we realize that we can control our thought process in a different way, and we can be open to growth and take failures as an opportunity, it just takes practice and time to think that way.
And it is effortful. Most people don't realize that, but it takes effort to do that. The downside is if you don't put the effort in, there's a lot of effort in terms of frustration somewhere else. So at the end of the day, it's effortful, but it's worth the investment.
Yes. And I think that people also think it's without trying it, it could be very woo-woo and just give me the tools, just give me the productivity. But unless this emotional regulation is controlled, then you will not be productive. Period.
As I say, people are drowned in a sea of strategies out there because they want these tools and stuff because they don't want to participate. They just want somebody to give them the answer. And that's why they struggle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why some people might be like, well, this coaching isn't working for me. Like I signed up because you were going to give me the tools, Like I had my first session with someone yesterday and he's like, so what do other people do who struggle like me? It doesn't matter what other people do. It might not work for you. Why are you feeling this way? What's happening?
It's funny. People come to me. I said, I want to be perfectly clear. There's two things. I can't coach you to try harder and I can't coach you to do it a certain way. If that's what you want, I'm not your guy. I try to self-select them right out of there. And I'm not a tip, tricks, and strategy. I help you problem solve. I mean, I help you understand this stuff, but if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your guy. It saves lots of time and frustration. And it's kind of funny because you can kind of the other thing too is I want accountability. As I say, well, go call your mother. I'm more expensive for that. If you just want somebody to nag you. Now, here's the thing that people don't understand is that you can be interacting with somebody and collaborating. You're thinking out loud and you can solve problems because you're thinking through what you're doing. That's not accountability. That's a thinking partner. But having somebody follow up and say, did you do that? Did you do that? Did you do that? Emotionally, at some point in time, you just shut that up.
That's an assistant, nagging. Right? It's an assistant.
So it's funny because there's a lot of people they're pre-wired to emotionally that's what they think is going to solve the problem, and underneath it's really kind of not, which takes us back to the whole emotional things because people want it to be easy, which is why I've tried to emphasize a couple times. If you think that this is easy or you think you can get an easy solution, you're going to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels because it's not easy. So anyway, thanks for the soapbox.
Absolutely.